that close to a bowl game, that close to beating the rival for the first time in 3 or 4 years. Couldn't get it done. 24-21, came back in the fourth quarter, made it close. But it's going to be a long, long off season in Tallahassee. This is Florida State Seminoles Live. We come your way each and every Wednesday night, 6 o'clock Eastern time. So just don't enjoy the show yourself. Bring in some family and some friends, some Florida State fans, college football fans. We see fan bases represented from all over the nation in this show. We've got from the top, Jason Parker, NBC6. Big game, James Coleman joining us tonight. How about that? You can catch him on Inside Drills, also 36 Degrees Podcast, and Sports Den Live.
Welcome back.
Boys, how we doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'd like to actually thank Florida State. Obviously, tonight's the fourth night of Hanukkah. Florida State gave me a Hanukkah present with that loss to Florida. Don't have to spend money on bowl tickets or anything. So there you go. Thank you, Florida State, for saving me a little bit of cash. Thank you. Appreciate that. I hate it.
Yeah, I was definitely gonna go. I was excited. I'm mad, but yeah, they probably did save me a little bit of money.
Yeah.
And disappointment.
All right, we've got to review this thing. So, James, we'll start with you. Yes, we do. We have to.
Gross. Okay.
We've got like 9 months to talk old football games now.
Oh, goody.
We've got to fill up a big off season. All right, James, what went wrong against the Gators?
The reality is this is Jimmy's and Joe's win games. And I'm not subscribing to the fact that Florida State is as bad as what people have tried to make it. Like there's this talent dearth that people make, but I'm also not going to lie and say that Florida State has recruited to the same level as Florida. I was talking to some guys and they were just telling me in general after the Miami game, and they were like, if Miami would have just lined up and played us man coverage and said, we just have better guys than you on defense, we would have got blown out. Miami got a little arrogant, and they tried to do the one thing that Jordan Travis actually does well, contrary to what's written. Bring pressure. He uses, and you run zone, he uses his legs very well. So why do I bring up Miami? Literally, that's the game plan that Florida had. Florida said, our front seven is better than what you have. We're going to play basic, and we're going to play man coverage, and we're going to dare your wide receivers to beat us. And if you watch that game, you don't see consistent wins with against their secondary. You've got Andrew Parchment, the guy you brought in to be your big play receiver to replace the Tamarind Terry and hopefully be better, and he's getting D'd up by a freshman corner. You've got, you had some of the biggest play we had in the receiving core was a one-handed catch by Pokey Wilson. And it was well covered. It was just a good catch. And outside of that, now you go to miscues, and the miscues are just special teams. Like we had all the momentum in the game until again, Pokey Wilson fumbles the punt or muffs the kick, and now you're in a situation where you stopped them, you had good momentum, and then now you gave them good field position. And even then, you had to stop, but it was just a guy broke 2 tackles. We joke all day about 4th and 14. I told I told Anthony Richardson, great kid, I said, man, you got to make 3rd and 25, like because that's really what sealed the game. Them converting a 3rd and 25, which should not have happened, should be impossible to do. And then the last thing, the Charlie Brown kick, which I have watched a lot of football in my life. And I have never seen somebody whiff so badly on an onside kick. I've seen bad onside kicks that went straight to the guy, but I've never seen somebody completely miss the ball. And all in all, it was a really terrible football game. If you're not a Florida State or Florida fan, if I didn't have to cover it, I honestly would have much rather watched Ohio State, Michigan, or Georgia dismantle Georgia Tech, or watch grass grow. it's a lot of other things that I could have been doing, but I knew I had to talk about it. But when you really just think, when you really just kind of narrow it all down, and
Mhm.
it's just Florida State doesn't have a dynamic wide receiver, and when we don't have anybody, when you don't have any threats, and your offensive line is still growing, you're a one dimensional team, and they made us one dimensional. And the SEC has better line play across the board.
For me, James, I'm going to flip it on the other side for a second. You look at that Miami game, and we've talked about it over the last couple of weeks, going back for the previous 2 wins. The Miami game was a game where the defense bent, but they did not break. Obviously, we jump out to a big lead, give up the lead, but then are able to come back on offense. Then the Boston College game, you have that jump out to a huge lead. You're up 26-3, and then it kind of seemed as if it was the defense just said, all right, we've got a big enough lead. We can start to play bad a little bit. Florida was, and I blame this on Adam Fuller, and I blame this on the defense, because this was a case of the defense thought that the offense was going to bail them out again. They thought the offense was going to bail them out just like they did in the Miami game. They thought the offense was going to bail them out just like they did in the Boston College game by jumping out to a big lead. Florida's defense, though, is better than Boston College's. Florida's defense is better than Miami's. Florida has better athletes. Do I believe Anthony Richardson is a better quarterback than Tyler Van Dyke or Sam Howell, 2 quarterbacks that Florida State beat? Absolutely not. But Anthony Richardson played the way you are supposed to play against that bad Florida State defense. That's why Florida State lost the game. And this is where the problem has to come in for next season. This was not a one-time thing. The Adam Fuller mistakes, this was not a one-time thing. So the question is, where are the changes going to be? Is Mike Norvell going to make a change at certain coaches' positions? Is he going to make a coordinator change? This is where this offseason becomes very important, because you've got a big class coming in. A lot of names right now who are committed. Hopefully a few more come in. Florida State right now looks like they are on track for a big signing day coming up in a couple of weeks, an early signing day. Do you make that move? And I think you have to consider making that move. I think Adam Fuller, this is his second season. I did not see a vast improvement over the course of the 2021 season from 2020 to justify him sticking around for a third season.
Let me ask you this. All right. Did you see multiple times where defensive ends collapsed the pocket from the tackle's position, and we didn't get any push from the D tackle position, but the guys were in position to make a tackle?
Yes.
Were there numerous times?
Yes.
How is that on the defensive coordinator? If they were in position to stop it and they didn't stop it, that's not like a coach's job is to call a play and give you the opportunity. I get the Adam Fuller critiques. At the end of the day, the Bucks and Adam Fuller, most of those coaches, and this is one of the things that I've never understood about fans who make excuses. Because I will give these guys their credit. They listen to a lot of stuff. They don't make excuses for themselves. They're not losers. But I will say this, outside of Adam Fuller going and playing linebacker and doing some stuff, you can't say that. Like 7, consistently in position, he just gets dunked on. He just doesn't make it. Like I can see if there were even the Jacksonville State game going way, way back, and everybody talks about prevent. And I've always heard this. The only thing prevent does is prevent you from winning a game. There were 2 guys in position to make a tackle. And if you're getting beat, pull them. Get a pass interference, you get another untimed down. If a guy is in position and outside of like all the major media goes back and writes, not us. We actually have been pretty real on this show. But all the major media talked about how the rosters were flipped, but then all of a sudden started talking about how we have a dearth in talent and we don't have it. If that's the truth, then if the guys are in position, it's probably just a talent issue. And if you resolve that getting better linebacker play, you resolve that hopefully by getting better detail. Now the scary thing is you're not going to have a Jermaine Johnson. Now what I'll say is this: is you have 3 interceptions in the first half. I believe it was 4 total turnovers, and you got 7 points. Anytime a defense scores 24, gets that many turnovers, holds a team to 24 points, Like, it probably would have held more if the offense would have scored because you would have forced Anthony Richardson to have to throw. You would have changed their offensive game plan. The offense has to bail the defense out.
Mm-hmm.
And our offense stinks in the second half. Like, again, so if you go look at games, like the entire third quarter, the offense didn't score a point. Consecutive 3-and-outs and things like that. The defense, I haven't looked at it, but if we look at time of possession on the field for the last two seasons, our defense has probably played two full seasons more than our offense. Like, so that just kind of wears you down. And again, there's
Right.
no excuses at the end of the day. Coach Bowden used to always tell us at halftime, the other team don't score, we win. Because defense got to stop them. But like I just like I have a hard time putting all that on Fuller when we can't get creative. We don't have a guy that can get like you got to if you get three if you get 3 turnovers and a half, a competent team is scoring 24 points in the first half. It is 24. It should have been 24-7 at worst going into halftime, and Florida's folding it up and packing it up. Now, I also blame some of I've talked to Mike. I don't mind Mike. I think Mike needs time. You can't fire another coach and do it, whatever. But I blame some coaching decisions, like 6 seconds left, and like that's the play you run. Everybody's blaming Jordan Travis, but I blame the person that play wasn't designed to score. It wasn't designed to do anything. Time management. You had 1 minute 40 seconds left in the game, and you knew you were down 2 scores. You were in field goal range, so kick the damn field goal, then try the onside kick, and you have 3 timeouts. So if you do the Charlie Brown kick, you still have a chance to stop them and make them go 3-and-out. That's coaching. That's like, but again, I also remember when I was talking to them, they've never coached in this game. These boys stayed in Gainesville. We don't stay in Gainesville. This is how bad that rivalry is, Mark. We stayed halfway, the halfway point. We'll drive an hour and a half to Lake City when I play, and then we'll take 75 on down that morning or whatever time we need to get there. These boys stayed in Gainesville. I'm like, yo, that's a rookie. That's a mistake right there. That lets me know that they heard about the magnitude of the game, but they don't understand quite the magnitude of the game. Another thing that that just tripped me out is just again, just we didn't like use the running backs in the passing game, which when we think about Clemson, the big play against Clemson was the wheel route with Toafili. Those guys can catch very, very well. Now, I will say this. It's difficult for a wide receiver to get off a press. For us, like nobody else in the nation, but for us, it seemed Sanford did a hell of a job doing it for whatever reason. But one thing, the biggest mismatch on the field is a running back on a linebacker. And our running backs are skilled receivers. So we got to do a better job of incorporating that. But all in all, I want to be mad because I got expectations and got hopes.
Be mad.
Well, no, I'm mad. I mean, don't get it twisted. What I mean is that when they went 0-4, I never thought we would be in this position.
Right.
That being said, 0-4 was never acceptable for me because you don't lose to Jacksonville State. Again, it goes back to again. So if to fans, because I know fans, they listen to the noise that gets put at them the most. And this is no disrespect to the 247s, the rivals, the whoever the hell else puts out a podcast every day, because I have other things to do. But common sense will tell you this: it can't be a dearth of talent, and you take the number 6 team in the nation into overtime. It can't be a dearth of talent, and you take a Clemson who's been one of the most dominant teams in the last decade. You should have beat them. It can't be a dearth of talent when you beat a Miami team that had the most production in the ACC return. It can't be a dearth of talent when you we lost to the NC State team with a one-legged quarterback, and we had every opportunity to win. Louisville took them to the finish. It's only one game we truly got our asses whooped, and that was that was Wake Forest.
Right.
And that's the best Wake Forest team they've had probably in forever. My point is that when you consistently lose those 1-point games, those 1-score games, there's always a coaching moment that comes into it. And I will give them the benefit of the doubt. And this is why I call him White Mike. This is why I call him Dilly. This is why I call it's not a
Hold
disrespectful
on.
thing. What
James,
it
don't
is
James, don't say White Mike. You might get Twitter. You might get Twitter beef.
my bad. Cancel me. I'll just go on my Discord. I really
There you
don't
go.
care.
There you go.
Like you can't cancel somebody that's
There you
good.
go.
My point is that I'm 37 years old. Mike's my age. Like I'm not. He's not. Like that's why people are like, oh, he's Bobby-esque. Like stop. Let my man's grave get cold before you start making these comparisons. He can be. I think I like when he talks. I think he has the charisma. I think he could do something. But I think people have given him something that he hasn't earned. And if you talk to him consistently and you actually listen to what he says in these press conferences and you don't listen with these headphones that make everything seem so glowing and you're waiting for he says, let me earn the respect. We have to go out and take it from people. And I think Mike just is close, but he hasn't. Because in a down ACC year, all these should have been, could have been, are missed opportunities. Because imagine if the would have been, you just handle business against Jacksonville State like you should have. You beat Clemson, which you should have. You do these things you should have done. Imagine what recruiting is. Imagine the momentum we have, and you be. And my bad, going back to Florida, right? Because this is what I can't accept, no matter what. And I saw Irish O'Fell, who have the utmost respect, try to justify this. They had 7 coaches, man. Really 6, because one, the most useless position coach on the football field is the running backs coach. But the running backs coach was the head coach. So you really had 2 offensive assistants that were able to manage the game. And that's Billy Gonzalez, who has 30 years of coaching experience that nobody has asked to coach. Like nobody has asked Billy Gonzalez to become an offensive coordinator. So that means he offers you absolutely nothing. Garrett McGee, who does have head coaching experience and offensive coordinator experience, was a defensive analyst at the University of Florida last year. There's not a Florida fan alive that said, oh my God, we're going to be okay because Garrett McGee is going to call plays. The only reason Dan Mullen had a job this long was because he was the only person who was him and Hevesy were the only people involved in the day-to-day operations of the offensive game plan. You got Christian Robinson, who has never called a defense until they fired Grantham. So you got all this inexperience with all this wealth of knowledge that we have at Florida State, or that's been written about, and we could not capitalize on it. That's just not a good look, and it's a little scary when you got guys like who I don't necessarily like Billy Napier as a head coach per se. He doesn't scare me. The staff that he's trying to accumulate of people who are actually competent, that people actually respect their opinions on things, is what scares me because we couldn't beat an incompetent coaching staff that has never been involved in the day-to-day game planning. And that's the part that worries me a little bit. But then again, you get you hit in the transfer portal again and you do some, who knows what happens.
Let me, before we get to Mark real quick, just addressing what I was saying. My beef with Adam Fuller is not personally against Adam Fuller. My beef is because the defense has not improved. This was not a one-time thing. That what happened in the third quarter and the start of the fourth quarter, this was not just all of a sudden the defensive collapse. This is something we've seen under Adam Fuller for the last 2 seasons. I was saying, hey, last season sucked. We heard all the, we know what last season was. Let's give it a chance. And I have not seen the improvement to justify why he should stick around, especially when you have other options out there, including other options within that own defensive unit. And it's a name I've talked about. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. Randy Shannon is someone who should be considered. He was a great defensive coordinator down here in Miami. I'm not saying we have anywhere near that level of talent right now at this point, but he is a great assistant coach. I think he would be somebody who we should definitely be considered as a possible person to be the defensive coordinator. Now, going along what James said there real quick. Yes, when you're 0-4 to start off the season, you're not going to think you're going to get to the point where you're 5-6 and within a score of getting to a possible bowl game. Florida State should be happy with the way the last 2 months played out. 5-3 the last 2 months of the season. Great way to end the season on a positive note. That being said, this season was nothing but a disappointment. At 5-7, a losing record is disappointing to both James as a former player, to both me as an alumni and a fan, James as an alumni. That is a disappointment. And the argument can be made by people, oh, well, you were within a play of beating Florida. You were within a play of beating Notre Dame. You were within a play of beating Jacksonville State. That's true. We are 3 plays away from being an 8-4 team right now. We're also 3 plays away from being a 2-10 team because remember, we beat Syracuse by a field goal. We beat Miami by a field goal. We beat Boston College by a field goal. So at this point, am I confident that the 2022 season is going to be this great magical season? No. Do I think Mike Norvell should be given a shot? Absolutely. But changes have to come. And James hit the nail on the head. You're losing Jermaine Johnson on the defensive side of the ball. You're going to lose several other players on the defensive side of the ball. That's where the problem's going to come in. So do you trust Adam Fuller being the leader of a defense that's going to have holes to fill, or do you need to bring somebody else in? That's the biggest question Mike Norvell has to ask himself right now.
Florida State Seminoles live, people. Every Wednesday, 6 Eastern. We got Big Game James here. So ask your questions. Big Game's here.
He's back. We thought we lost him for a while, James. We thought we lost you. Seriously.
You know you get the invite every week, right?
Yeah, I get it. I just, man, listen, let me tell you this. When you're in the hospital for 10 days and you ain't made no money, like, it doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a long time. And then I wasn't 100% for a while. So when I got the opportunity to make some bread, I had to go.
Right.
I was like, I worked 7 days a week all the way up until last week. This is the first week I've kind of had a little bit of downtime.
Just admit it. You didn't want to talk about the Jacksonville State game. Just be honest with us here. We're all friends and family. You just didn't want to
I definitely didn't. I was living.
Absolutely.
I'm still upset about that. I took my son to that game.
Why?
Like, that's what hurt the most. And like that's the only game he went to this year. And I'm thinking it's gonna be a blowout. It's gonna be great. We'll go back in the locker room after the game, man. He knew something. He predicted it. He's like, Dad, watch something happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, geez, the kid called it. But he still loves Florida State. He got a chance to see all the cool stuff. But again, he understands the standard. Like, I don't coach to lose anything. Like, even his I-9 team, we play all 10 of our kids, but the goal for every defensive series is to stop the offense, and the goal for every offensive series is to score. When we don't score, we run in practice. When we don't stop them every series, we run in practice. The goal is to go out and raise demons on the football field. And I think I don't raise losers. I wasn't raised to be a loser. Losing is not acceptable. You can lose, but you'll learn from it and you'll pay punishment. Because as I've told people, I think his name's Kelvin. He's with Chop Chat. And he brought up I was saying this. I got this from Mike Norvell, but the standard is the standard. And he again talked about the dirt, the talent, and I said, I tell people the real world doesn't give a damn about that. My mortgage is due on the thing. I supposed to be doing the first, but I think I have to like the 10th or something to pay it. If I don't pay my mortgage, whether I have again my 10 days out, Dave was like, "Great, sorry to hear you got COVID." Our mortgage is due. Like, I didn't have the talents to pay that, but I was still held to that standard. And as I tell people, nobody cares. It's wins and losses. I believe, even though Coburn is leaving, I believe Coburn made a very pointed, and a very direct, and a very important statement in the landscape of what college football is. He was asked by the media if Taggart would have stayed and he went 6-6, would that have been good enough? And he says 6-6 is not the standard, it's not good enough. And I 100% agree with him. Going to a bowl game is not like, I don't, like, even then, like, I would applaud. Marvin Jones came on my show and brought something up. This is the first senior class, and God knows what, at Florida State history, that doesn't know what it's like to have a winning season. Like, in 40-something years. Like, that's a long time to go. But, again, a bowl game would have been great. But I don't know what it's like to not have played in the January 1st bowl. Like their choices would have been slim, like Shreveport. I don't even know where Shreveport is. But, like, let alone, like, I played in the worst bowl I played in is in the city that I live in currently, Jacksonville. And, like, right now, that would be like the best bowl game they played in the last decade. I played in Miami on January 2nd. Like we were must see TV.
You played Miami twice.
And like twice. Yeah, I played Miami twice. I played in the Sugar Bowl. Left New Orleans drunk, overweight, and out of shape. Same way I left as a pro. But I had a great time. Like this is what that's the standard. And granted, I can change my expectations to where it can get to the standard. But if you don't have standards in your own life, and that's my problem with interacting with people, is that I view my entertainment the same way, which is this is what it is. I view my entertainment the same way I view my life. If it's not up to standard, why am I watching it? Like, why would I be like in day to day? And I have expectations for it. If I spend thousands of dollars to be a booster, I should have expectations that my little $1,000 return will be, give me some enjoyment and not have my son see us lose to a FCS school. But like I said, there was some great times. Like the Miami game was amazing. The Clemson game had great moments of bonding and watching it over TV. But like you brought up a good point, Jay.
UMass game was phenomenal.
I didn't watch that.
I'm not even
gonna lie to you. Pretend like I watched that. But like the UMass game, like Jordan Travis. People say, like I saw somebody post, Florida State doesn't throw enough for a quarterback to want to come or a wide receiver to want to come. And then I went and I showed 44, 40, 29, 33, 25, 29. I think all but three games, we were under 20 passes. Two of those games were two of the highest scoring games we've had at Florida State this year. One being Notre Dame, one being UMass, where we threw 15 passes and beat a team 55-3. And I think we didn't throw that much against Clemson. But like with Jordan Travis, when somebody's open, Jordan Travis can hit them. Like it's when it's very difficult for us to get open. But like, I look at this like if Jordan, I don't understand. Like that's the real angry part. Like why Jordan Travis didn't play the entire year. I'm not saying he's the greatest quarterback in the world. I think he has talent. I think he's the best quarterback in our system. But like UMass, we saw 5 throws from a quarterback that throws like Al Bundy. That's no longer here with us. That was Chuba Purdy, who we knew what he was. And all of a sudden, everybody's like trying to get rid of the guy who the only games we won in the last 2 years, the only games we haven't been blown out in, he's been the starting quarterback. And it's just it's wild. It's just our fan base is interesting. Again, I hear what you're saying about Fuller. And the critiques are fair. I just don't think it's as bad as what people think. I think we don't critique our offense anywhere near enough, as much as we critique our defense. But I think that's partially because we have an offensive-minded coach, and people feel like you can't critique the offense because you're critiquing Mike, and Mike is uncritiquable.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you critique him, it means you want him fired, which isn't the case. It just means that we can't score more than 24 points consistently, and that's not like what I expect the offensive genius that he's been deemed to be to be able to do.
And I think the offense played better at points this season than last season. I think that's why the offense does get a slight break. But I want to go back to something that James said for a moment. He mentioned, obviously, the news that came out today was that Florida State is looking to move on from David Coburn as the athletic director. And there's one word that comes to mind when I think of David Coburn. First of all, love his wife, great family, great people. The word I think of when I think
only reason I'm at Florida State is because of his wife.
Absolutely. She's a great lady. The word I think of when I think of David Coburn is a hypocrite. And I'm going to tell you why. When, as James said, when Willie Taggart was fired with a 9-12 record, he was told, he said to the media, 6-6, as James said, 6-6 is not the standard. 6-6 is not acceptable. But then when we are starting off this season 0-4, with Mike Norvell as the head coach, all of a sudden we're sticking with Mike Norvell, we're sticking with Mike Norvell, we're sticking with Mike Norvell. Now, do I think Mike Norvell should have been fired? No, I absolutely don't. And Mark and I have talked about that. I thought he should have been given a 3rd season. I believe he should be given 3 seasons as a coach. But as James has said before, the standard is the standard. If the standard is going to be the same for one coach, it has to be the same for all coaches. If you're going to say 6-6 is not acceptable for Willie Taggart, why is 0-4 acceptable for Mike Norvell? Right now, Mike Norvell. Now let's just say it. Mike Norvell has a win against a team from the state of Florida. He has a rivalry win over Miami. He has a win over a ranked team in last year's win over North Carolina when they were ranked number 5 nationally. He also has an 8-13 all-time record at Florida State through 21 games. One game worse than what Willie Taggart had when you fired Willie. Am I saying Mike Norvell should be fired? No, I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying if you're going to have the standard for one, you have to have the standard for all. That's why next season is so important. Next season you have now. Here's where the benefits happen for Florida State. Florida's at home. Clemson's at home. Wake Forest is at home. Yes, you have to go to Miami. Where Tyler Van Dyke will be back, but he loses several key weapons, and that defense is young, but they will return a couple guys, but they also lose their offensive coordinator. You go to LSU in New Orleans. But LSU is going to be rebuilding. I don't want to see Brian Kelly again, but that's what we're going to have to deal with on that one. So the schedule is a little bit more favorable next season if the offense can continue to get better, if the defense can continue to grow. But the standard has to be the same for everyone. If you're going to sit here and say 6-6 is not good for Willie Taggart, why is 5-7 okay for Mike Norvell? That would be my simple question. If I had one question to ask David Coburn, why is it good for one and not good for another? And if you can't come up with an answer, then you need to be replaced. And it's not just a football thing. You could look, was Mike Martin Jr. the best coach to be hired as the head baseball coach once his dad left? Probably not. They probably should have looked outside the family, but they made the hire that was right in the next office over. Are there a lot of issues that's going on in the athletic department? Absolutely. This is not just a football thing with David Coburn. But from the football aspect, if 6-6 is not good for Willie Taggart, why is 5-7 okay for Mike Norvell?
I'll step in with a couple answers.
The reality too is this.
Go ahead, James.
Like I said, the reality is this: is that with he was an interim athletic director. Should have never had the power. Like imagine, like right now, Miami would be a disarray if you fire Manny without an athletic director to properly place. Like the fire. Actually, let me rephrase that. There's nothing wrong with the firing. The hiring should not have been made by a guy who's an interim. And what happens is like you should that should have been the job of the AD. And I think Mike will be in kind of put on place with the new AD that comes in, unless they hire one that's favorable. I hope they keep Alford in the position that he's in right now. I think he does exponentially better for the university as the president of the booster club and influencing and helping bring an athletic director over. His name escapes me, but he's currently at Alabama right now. He's an associate athletic director, but he has ties to Florida State.
Jeff Perriton.
Yeah, Jeff. Jeff was there when I was at Florida State. So I think Jeff would be a perfect young, energetic, up-and-coming guy that's seen what it's like at a big program that can help us structure and get caught up to where we need to be at. I don't want an athletic director from New Mexico or wherever the hell. I want an athletic director from out of the SEC. Or even if you want to give me somebody from the big schools in the Big Ten, I'll take that as well. But I need somebody who knows what, so when this football-only facility is built, I need the layout and designs for the next one. That's what Georgia has. Georgia just got done building an indoor practice facility and stuff, and they already got the blueprints for the next one because the one we're building right now is already obsolete. And that's unfortunate, but that's just what happens when you get in the game so late. But what I'll say is this is like, that's why Mike shouldn't be. That's the other reason why I don't think Mike should be fired. This guy shouldn't have hired him in the first place, and this guy does not deserve to fire him. And you go in with a guy who has ties and a guy who can work hand in hand with those things. He shouldn't have been able to he has no experience. He was an accountant, and that's what he does very well, and that's what he should have stuck to. You bring in an athletic director who is competent enough to be able to see 3 to 4 years down the road. Because guess what would happen? And this is like Mike had 4. This is his 6 years as a head coach, right? Well, 7. Yeah, no, it's 6. Yeah, 6 years as a head coach. You know what happens this year if everything works out the way that it was looking like it was going to work out? Like we wouldn't have won any worse than 3 wins last year. We wouldn't have been any worse than 5 wins this year.
Mhm.
And you know what we're doing right now? We're firing a coach, and you know who will have the ability to hire? Mike Norvell. But Mike Norvell would be 2 years better as a coach. He would be 2 years more mature as a coach. He would have more ties. He would have more things going on. And I'm not even saying he would be that guy, but I'm just saying he wasn't going nowhere. He wasn't leaving Memphis. And I think I've said this on this show numerous times. No, and we've just seen now, because again, I saw somebody put a comment up there. I believe Florida State's a big boy school. We just saw what big boy schools do. LSU didn't fire their coach in the middle of the season to go hire the most up and coming G5 coach. USC doesn't fire their coach in the beginning of the season to hire the most up and coming G5 coach. You fire your coach that early because you know you have the opportunity to go get somebody big. Or you just do what Florida just did. You fire your coach, you know it's coming. You give him his chance, you fire him at the end of the season, and then you go hire the up and coming G5 coach with ties.
Mhm.
It's a way that you handle yourself when you feel you're of the best. And it's a way you carry yourself when you feel that you're not. And that ain't Mike's fault. That's our fault as admin. And that's our fault as fan. And my beef with AD Comer is this. You didn't make a decision as a man or as an athletic director. You made a decision at the whim of your fan base, which is not what any athletic, which I think is the fault of Strickland out of Florida. An athletic director's job is to make a business decision that he feels is what's best for the university.
Mhm.
It is not what's best for the boosters. It is not what you feel like the fans are doing because now social media presence and all these other things are telling you. You don't get swayed by the reads. You make your decision and you're steadfast in it, and you do everything that you can to support whoever's there. That means you don't cut the recruiting budget. That means you don't restrict hires. That means as long as they're not like pedophiles or things like that.
Mhm.
That means you go out there and you allow your coaches to coach, and you give them every resource available to be able to do their job to the best of their ability. And I will say this for the gripe of the last four coaches, including Bowden, has been a lack of resources, a lack of support, and not an opportunity to be able to go out there and perform, do what you need to do to the best of your ability. And that spans Bowden, who is just a phenomenal coach who won in spite of. That spans Jimbo, who was a phenomenal coach, phenomenal recruiter, and probably won a championship in spite of. Tag, who probably wasn't prepared or ready for it,
Mhm.
and neither was Mike. But I think Mike is going to grow into it, and we have no choice. And those are the things. Again, if anybody wants to argue those things intelligently, please hit me up offline, and we can talk about this on Twitter. But at the end of the day, if you really look at these things, that's the inadequacies of Coburn. But that's what happens when a president who's on his way out appoints his friend to be able to do accounting and try to in an era where you have to spend, like you got to spend. And if nothing speaks that more, again, 10 years, 115, 10 years, 95, 10 years, 110. Like these guys are getting, and then next year is
Mhm.
going to be even more dumb. So I hope Mike wins 8, 9 games
Mhm.
next year, and we got to pay him a whole bunch of money to extend it. I want the success to happen. But at the end of the day, the athletic director and the play on the field has been subpar because actually we already are paying Mike $9 million a year. Well, not Mike, but we're paying $9 million a year for a head football coach because Tiger's getting his cut
Mhm.
and Mike's getting his cut. So we know we have the ability to do it. It's just we're not getting the results that you would
Yeah.
expect to be able to get those things. So,
And
but
one of the
all in all,
sorry, I was just saying one of the viewers wrote that talking about the problems under the Taggart era. Yes, 100%. Is Norvell doing a better job of recruiting than what Willie Taggart did? Yes, I would agree with that 110%. Do I think Willie Taggart should have been the
is
coach?
he?
No. I think he's doing a better job of
Let me
recruiting.
ask you this
Yes.
real quick.
Go ahead.
Hold on. What was the ranking when Taggart was fired?
I'm gonna have to look it up here on the computer.
We were top 10.
And what have we been?
We only have to judge that.
Right. And what?
So what I'm saying is, I think Mike's doing a good job. A lot of the off the field stuff that we heard about that we should have never heard about, because, and that always makes me, because there's things I hear about too, but you should not know about the locker room. That the locker room, like that's too much pillow talking. That right there was an indictment of Taggart in the first place, and why he should have been fired, because that won't happen under Mike, because Mike will cuss your ass out. And I know that for a fact. But the point is that the things that we were hearing is stuff that doesn't make sense. You can't call offense and defense in college. Like, stop it. Like, not you, but I'm just saying people who wrote that, stop it. It doesn't work like that. Like, it's too difficult. It's too, like, you can't be in offense. Offense and defense meet at the same time. How does somebody go in both meeting rooms unless you teleport?
Right.
Some of the stuff that, like, they talked about drug use. State of Florida, you can piss test somebody at any given time. And because we don't want to pay, what do you think would have been the first thing they would have done? They would have urine tested them. A lot of the stuff that we heard sounds really, really good on Real Housewives of Atlanta or Beverly Hills Housewives. And that's the problem with our fan base, which is why we did not move like LSU moved. It's why we did not move like USC moved. We move with gossip, and everybody has to be able to tell the story. To quote a poet by the name of Dwayne Carter, Lil Wayne is what they know. Real G's move in silence like lasagna. We are a big time program and fan base. I'm here to tell you guys. I'm shaking you. Stop acting like children and stop acting like women watching soap operas. Start acting like the big dog we are. Have some standards, hold people accountable, and have expectations. Some of you guys have lower, like, if your expectations can't be this low for every aspect in your life. I pray it's not, because if it is, God bless. You're a janitor, and there's nothing wrong with being a janitor, but you're not the best janitor. Be the best that you can be. Expect the best. We got this. Our coach is going to be great. That does not make what Jason said not true. There are expectations, there are standards that were put out by our administration. It doesn't mean we want that guy back. God knows I don't want him back. But it doesn't make it right either. So, like, I mean, those are the things that I think we can start admitting, because we're all adults. Like, more so the fan base, not anybody. Like, you know, but the thing is that Mike's our guy. We got to support him, but he's a big boy. He's getting paid like $4 million a year. He can take some heat. Trust me.
Mark, I have to ask, is that the first time Lil Wayne has ever been quoted on one of these shows? I think that has to be.
I believe so. I believe so.
That was first. I like it.
Had it been done by anyone else besides Big Game, It would have gone right past me, and I would have forgotten anyway. But I'll remember that one.
Absolutely. Write that one down.
But anyways, guys, I gotta bounce. But it was good seeing. I'll try to be on here next Wednesday too.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, James.
Thanks, Big Game.
We're never going to see him again, are we?
Of course we are.
Guys,
come on.
Guys, tune back in 6 months when we get to see James Coleman come back and join us.
For me, it's just difficult to think that this is the last week of November. Tomorrow is December 1st. Today's December 1st. Today is December 1st.
Come on, Mark.
But generally the last week of November, and we will not have fresh football to talk about until the first week of September.
Actually, August 27th, Florida State opens with Duquesne on August 27th. Hopefully a win. I mean, last year we lost to an FCS team, so hopefully.
9 months away.
Hopefully not that one. But I stand by what I'm saying, and I get where James is coming from. I understand that. The standard has to be the same for both. Once again, and let me just say this, because I guarantee you there's idiots in our comment section saying that I'm trying to get rid of Mike Norvell. I am not. I don't think you can continue to do the rotating carousel of coaches just every 2 seasons, every 3 seasons, or whatnot. I'm willing to give Mike a shot. That being said, the standard has to be the same for everyone.
I have a question, though.
Yes, sir.
That I'm not understanding your message. Okay. Willie Taggart went 9-12.
Correct.
Mike Norvell has coached 21 games as well. He is 8-13. Okay. You were stating that since Willie Taggart was let go, at 9-12, then the standard needs to be the standard. And therefore, if they made that decision after 21 games with Willie Taggart, then they need to go forward with maintaining that standard. But then on the same breath, you're saying that Mike Norvell should not be fired.
Right. I'm saying my personal opinion. My personal opinion is that I don't think Mike Norvell should be fired because I don't think, and we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
How we both thought that Willie Taggart should not have been fired after 2 seasons.
True.
I think you should be given 3 seasons. You get your first recruiting class in, get them in for their 3 years, and you go from there. My contention is just the fact is I'm just holding Florida State's administration to their words. Their words when you fired Willie Taggart after the Miami loss was 6-6 is not acceptable, which I agree with. 6-6 should not be acceptable when you are a power program like Florida State. So my question like I said, my simple question would just be, if you're going to say 6-6 is not acceptable for one coach, why is it when you're 0-4, including I would say the most embarrassing loss in program history, why is that okay? Why is it okay to say we're going to stick with Mike Norvell, but we're not going to stick with Willie Taggart? I understand all the outlying circumstances. I understand the recruiting circumstances. I get it and understand it. I'm not saying that I think Mike Norvell should be fired. I think Mike Norvell should stick around. I'm saying, though, basically what I'm saying, don't open your mouth and talk if you're going to come back a year and a half later and say something completely different that makes you look like a hypocrite. And I think David Coburn, I think he's a smart enough man to realize that if you're going to come back and be 0-4 with a loss to Jacksonville State, you're going to say we're going to stick with this coach. You shouldn't have said it back on November 3rd of 2019 after you fired Willie Taggart. You can't ride both sides of the fence. That's all I'm saying.
Well, this would be my response to defend him without knowing the job that he's doing or failing to do, but just as a bystander that follows college football. This would be my response, would be, although I agree with I'll say I understand your point, and I agree with the spirit in which you are stating it, and I understand and agree with the framework. I think that there are, depending on the circumstances, a few different things to consider. One would be my evaluation of a head coach would start with the record. The record is, bottom line, the most important thing, unless there are egregious NCAA violations or something nefarious going on, that the record for a head football coach is, that's the resume. It starts with that. But myself, if I was in charge in evaluating Mike Norvell or any other head coach, would put that record into context. And we've talked about that. You know, what does 5-7 look like? What does 7-5 look like? Whatever the record is, we start there. But we both, in watching and knowing football for many years, can see whether there is growth and development and progress or there's not. What are the barometers in this conference? It's Clemson. What are the other barometers? It's playing Miami. It's playing Florida. What did those games look like? It's playing Notre Dame on the opening weekend. It's okay. How competitive was the team in those games? And supplementing the evaluation of the record with the growth and development of the players and the program.
My comeback to that would be, this was the missed opportunity for a Florida State team. This is a missed opportunity where, and I agree with you. Yes, it's a 5-7 record, but like we said before, you're talking about 9 points, three field goals each, and you're all of a sudden an 8-4 team. If you beat Notre Dame, you beat Jacksonville State, you beat Florida by 3 field goals, you're all of a sudden, yes, it doesn't help with the ACC standings, but you're 8-4 and looking a lot better heading into next season at that rate. This was the year to take advantage of it because you have Clemson having a down year. Yes, you had Wake Forest. Yeah, you probably lose to Wake Forest, but this was the year to make inroads in the ACC, in an ACC that was an absolute cluster, you know what, this season. I mean, the ACC championship game this year is Wake and Pitt. This was the year to take advantage and make a statement saying, hey, we may not be completely back to the dynasty era of the 90s, but we're on our way back. We may not be back to where we were in 2013, but we're on our way back. And that's why I feel like Florida State missed those opportunities. But once again, I'll say it one more time. I think that it falls back to, if you ask David Coburn, would you make that same comment that 6-6 is not acceptable in 2019, only to come back when you're 0-4 and make the comment that we're going to stick with that coach? I don't think he makes that comment in firing Willie Taggart. That's all I'm saying. It makes him sound like a hypocrite. I don't think he's a great hypocritical person, but for that comment alone is very hypocritical. Wake Forest and Pitt is the ACC championship game this year.
He obviously did not know what was coming in the future, and he should have chosen his words differently.
Words have meaning.
Words have meaning.
Words have meaning.
All right, everyone. Our show hopefully has meaning for all of you. Here at the Voice of College Football, every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Jason Parker, NBC 6,
Happy
The Lone Survivor.
Happy Hanukkah to
Happy
my Jewish
Hanukkah.
brethren. Happy Hanukkah to all my Jewish brethren.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas in 24 days to all of you celebrating Christmas. Merry Kwanzaa. We wish everyone a happy holidays here at the Voice of College Football.
We certainly do.
I'm still waiting on my gift
certainly
from
do.
Mark, but that's okay.
On this first day of December.
Still waiting on my gift, Mark. You got 5 days. You can express it.
I wouldn't know what to send it.
Just send me a dreidel or something. We'll call that.
Okay.
A little garnet gold dreidel. I'll spin it. But that's how we'll decide what if Florida State wins the game next season. We'll spin the dreidel.
Will the hot takes return soon?
I think next week. In fact, here's what we're going to do. Next week, here's your program alert for next week. Next week, we'll break down recruiting, and I will give you hot takes on who is going to sign with Florida State. And maybe Logan, if he decides that this is more important than school, I have to do my schoolwork. He should have gotten his degree in 4 years, like the rest of us. He'd been fine. But no, he stayed for a redshirt year. We miss you, Logan.
We do miss Logan. Hopefully he's studying hard.
Thank God.
Hopefully.
But next week, we'll break down recruiting. The 15th, of course, is early National Signing Day. We'll have a complete breakdown here with Mark Rogers, the Voice of College Football. And I think next week we can also do a little playoff. Let's break down the playoffs next week. College football playoff. We'll know.
And this time in 2 weeks, of course, will be National Signing Day, as you just mentioned. Therefore, our show lands right on the early signing day, and we can evaluate Florida State's class at that point.
It can't get worse, guys. Well, it technically can, but we're going to go positive here, guys. It can only get better. Dear God,
Miami Live right now. Go on over to the Miami channel. Lock in. We'll see you there. And until next week.
Didn't we beat Miami?